I'm Abigail Cahill. I'm an associate professor of biology here at Albion College, and I focus on invertebrates of all kinds. And my background is mostly in marine biology, but here I live in Michigan at Albion, far from the ocean. And so one of the things I've started doing is working with freshwater macroinvertebrates because we have access to them on campus through resources like the White House Nature Center and the Kalamazoo River, which is right on campus behind the football field. So this has led me to this really cool project where we are identifying macroinvertebrates in wild rice that grows in the river, and we're looking at communities of these invertebrates inside and outside of wild rice patches to see if the rice impacts how many of these organisms there are, or their diversity, what kinds of organisms there are. There's a lot of reasons we're interested in this. And this has led us to doing a really exciting project in collaboration with the Nottawaseppi Huron Band of Potawatomi, for whom wild rice is a very important resource, and being able to expand and do some interdisciplinary work with colleagues at Albion in other departments, most notably anthropology, and then also working with NHBP directly to do some of this work. So I'm enjoying getting to do this, involving students in research and doing this really neat project.
I go to Microsoft for this would be easier. Well, let me know what it is. Yeah, if we figure it out, I will let you know. These are dead trails. Yes, they are all dead. Okay. Yes. Sometimes the water moves in such a way that they look like they're moving, but yeah, they're okay.
In communication with the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer, Doug Taylor, and the Environment Department Director, John Rodwin, we learned that the NHBP, or the Nottawaseppi Huron Band of Potawatomi, was really interested in wild rice research and restoration. Wild rice was once abundant in this part of North America, but due to settler activities, urbanization, agricultural expansion with agrochemicals, dredging of rivers as part of the logging industry, this plant was nearly eradicated. And now there are efforts underway to restore it, and as part of those restoration efforts, it's interesting to understand its relationship to other species. And that's what this project is all about. Professor Cahill and her students had been actively studying macroinvertebrates in the Kalamazoo River, and one of their summer research projects found that those macroinvertebrates were more plentiful, they were denser and more biodiverse in the places where the rice grows. And when we shared this findings with our friends at the NHBP, they were very excited. This would seem to corroborate Indigenous ecological knowledge, which speaks to the interconnectedness of wild rice with other species. And we've been working over the last several years to corroborate those findings, though rice is famously variable from season to season in its growth. With an added twist. There's the conventional collector. It's basically a Tupperware container that's been carved out on two sides with a screen at each end for the macroinvertebrates to swim into. With this collector, you are putting plastic in the river and letting it sit for 2 weeks. Doug and John had invited us to see if we could develop a collector that uses locally available natural materials that would be biodegradable and that also tap into Indigenous ecological knowledge. Birch bark has been used for generations and generations to build homes, to build canoes. It's been used as a writing surface, as parchment. It's been used to create storage containers, and so this was a very important resource for Indigenous peoples of the Great Lakes, and we thought it was important to incorporate that material into the design. So what we have is a 3D printed interior that is made out of, instead of plastic filament, it is wood pulp and cornstarch that run through that 3D printer to give it a rigid frame, and then we wrap that frame in birch bark. We've done several seasons testing the birch bark macroinvertebrate collector alongside the conventional plastic collector and found that they function the same. With that finding then, we were invited to go out to Nottawa Creek near the Nottawaseppi Huron Band of Potawatomi's reservation, and then place these birch bark containers in the water where Zizania aquatica is growing. We placed 7 of those, what we call now wigwas makek, that is the Potawatomi word for a birch bark container. So we deployed 7 of them in September and removed 6 from the water. We deployed 7 in honor of the 7 grandfather teachings that are transferred from generation to generation of Anishinaabe people, as well as the 7 generations philosophy, which encourages everyone to be responsible to and accountable to 3 generations past, 3 generations forward, and the present generation. Removed 6 and left 1 in the water as a symbol of our ongoing partnership. We expect to do a lot more of this research in the future.